Welcome to the Times of Israel's daily briefing. Today is Wednesday, March 11th. I am Amanda Borschel-Dan from our Jerusalem studio, joined by our military correspondent, Emanuel Fabian. Manny, how are you doing today?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. So glad that you are joining us. And I do actually want to know, how are you doing today?
Better. We've seen less missiles overnight, which means a bit more sleep.
Actually, you saw fewer missiles, but in my neck of the woods, we saw many more alerts and sirens than usual. So win some, lose some, Manny, and I'm glad you got better sleep. So today we are going to take a tour of our borders, and Manny will let us know the stats, the figures, what's happening on each of the fronts, because there are many fronts still active in terms of the IDF. And then at the very end of the program, we have a new feature. It's called 5-Minute Frontlines. So stay tuned. And we're back. I'm Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our military correspondent, Emanuel Fabian. Manny, just to begin with, I saw a bunch of stats and figures coming out from the U.S. military. So I'd like to start with what we're hearing from the U.S. in terms of their effort in Iran, and then move to our own IDF. What are you hearing from the U.S.?
So the US puts out these stats every so often on sort of how many targets it's hit. I think the last number we heard from the US was around 5,000 Iranian targets struck in Iran since the beginning of the war, or at least in the first 10 days of the war. I don't think we've seen a new update since then, but assume that this number has grown by a few hundred, or if not a few thousand more since then. One of the key things that the U.S. Central Command likes to highlight is the Iranian Navy. So they say they've destroyed over 50 vessels belonging to the Iranian Navy, sort of the Iranian ships. And we also saw yesterday the Central Command announced that it had destroyed 16 Iranian mine layers in the Strait of Hormuz, which is this sort of vessels that are used by Iran to lay mines in the area. There's been a lot of reports now on whether or not Iran has been laying mines in that area. It's definitely a development that we're going to be keeping an eye on.
Okay, and is the IDF also striking naval targets, or how is the division of labor being conducted here?
So as far as I understand, the Americans have taken all responsibility for the Iranian Navy, and Israel's not striking Iranian Navy targets. And Israel's targeting other things. So the main things that we've seen in the past few days that Israel's been targeting is headquarters and command centers belonging to Iran's military forces, internal security forces, and the Basij paramilitary force. We saw strikes against IRGC command centers belonging to their air force, meaning the units responsible for launching drones at Israel and launching ballistic missiles at Israel. Basij, the paramilitary force, all the internal security forces responsible for the suppression of protests. Israel's been targeting those sites. And we've also seen sort of recently a lot more strikes on Iranian missile production facilities, where they build the ballistic missiles and assemble them, and also research and development sites. That's been what Israel's been mainly targeting in the past few days.
And do you have any numbers for us in terms of how many munitions have been used in Iran vis-a-vis this war as opposed to the previous war in June?
So during the 12-day war in June, in total, the Israeli Air Force dropped around 4,000 bombs in Iran. We last had an update a few days ago from the military that it had dropped 7,500 munitions in Iran. As far as I understand, that number has grown more since then. I think we're already at around 10,000 at this point, but we'll wait to hear an official update from the military. But we can say it's probably around or more than double what we saw during the 12 days in the previous war.
And in terms of the technology being used by the U.S. as well, obviously at the end of the 12-day war, we saw the U.S. bring out the B-2 bombers. But as I understand it, they've been using it from the beginning here in this current conflict?
The U.S. has been using its heavy bombers, the B-1, B-2, and B-52s in Iran to drop very heavy munitions on targets that are very deep underground. Iran's missile storage facilities, the nuclear sites as well. we've seen their use sort of increase over the days, and we're likely to see more. We saw yesterday lots of these bombers stationed at an Air Force base in England, where they then set out for Iran. So if we sort of today listen to the Americans' briefing and whatever they report today, we're likely going to hear reports that they have targeted more of these underground sites as well with these bunker busting bombs.
Right. We also heard, of course, from Pentagon head Pete Hegseth yesterday that Tuesday, yesterday, was going to be an unprecedented day of targeting. And are you hearing that as well from the Israeli side?
From Israel, no. We haven't heard much. There was waves of strikes that Israel conducted in Tehran and other areas of Iran. Nothing more intensive than usual. And we haven't really heard from Iran yet. It's kind of difficult to get news out. Sometimes even reports coming from people on the ground sometimes takes many hours to actually get through because of the sort of blackout on the internet there. There is internet connection. There's ways around the blackout, but it does take sometimes many hours for this news to actually get out. So we'll probably hear later today what was targeted in which areas and how intense these strikes were.
Okay, now let's talk about what Iran is shooting at us, at Israel and the region. But let's start with us because we are the Times of Israel. So what are we hearing?
So Iran has fired more or less 300 ballistic missiles at Israel since the beginning of the war. And this is, of course, less than what it fired in the June war. In the June war, it launched more than 500 over those 12 days. And it's important to note this because Iran isn't just firing at Israel this time. It's firing at all of its neighbors and other countries as well, Azerbaijan and Turkey even, and even towards Cyprus. So the reason that we're getting, I would say, fewer missiles than the last war is because Iran is attacking everyone as well. But of these 300 missiles, half of them, according to the IDF's estimates, have included these cluster bomb warheads, the warheads that sort of open up in the air as they're descending and spread these smaller submunitions over a wide area. They impact in a radius of around 10 kilometers. We saw one of these impacts a couple days ago kill 2 people and injure a third one seriously in central Israel. So they are very lethal, but the explosive is quite or significantly smaller than the traditional warheads that Iran has launched, the other 150 or so, which contain warheads of hundreds of kilograms, some of them 500, some of them even 750. Iran claims to have 1 ton warheads as well that it has launched at Israel. Those cause very extensive damage. Those can take out entire buildings. And as we've seen previously, extensive damage caused by those sort of impacts. Another thing I think
in the previous war, Manny, we did see at least 1 or 2 occurrences of the cluster bomb, and this is illegal according to international law, correct?
It's a bit complicated whether or not it's illegal per se. There is a convention where there's around 100 or so signatories to it, different countries that have signed on to this sort of convention against cluster munitions. Israel is not on it, neither is Iran, and neither is the US. But in general, using such weapons indiscriminately on civilian areas, and the IDF says that Iran is firing at civilian areas, could be considered or is considered a war crime. But there are use cases for cluster munitions where it's not illegal per se if you're using it on enemy artillery forces in a certain area or in a forested area or something like that. It's the main issue is the reason why so many countries want to ban cluster munitions, or they say that they sign on to this, is because of the threat it poses to civilians afterwards. Many of these cluster munitions don't explode when they fall, and then they effectively act as landmines, and people can stumble upon them and be injured and killed by them even years after the fact. And therefore, that's why they're so can be so dangerous. But it's, in a way, sometimes it may even be preferable that Iran is firing these because of the smaller explosive that they pack rather than these massive hundreds of kilograms explosives that really can cause massive destruction.
Let's take it one step further. And these smaller cluster bomb explosions, it's about 20 times 2.5 kilograms, essentially something like that. That's the maths. So if we were to compare it to what Lebanon is shooting at Israel, let's do this comparison because Iran is shooting large missiles a long way. And what we're getting from Lebanon right now is more the medium to short range, correct? And so how do these compare in terms of payload?
Yeah, it's similar, but Hezbollah, the missiles and rockets it's firing, they have various different types. So, if you want to compare the cluster bomb impacts, they're very similar to what Hamas fires at Israel from Gaza, or what it did fire at Israel. It's basically a rocket with several kilograms, like you mentioned, 2.5 kilograms in some of them. There are submunitions that have slightly larger payloads, but we're not talking about more than a few kilograms of explosives. Hezbollah has been firing rockets at northern Israel, also with warheads that have several kilograms of explosives in them. They can cause damage, they can cause injuries, and they can kill people, of course. But Hezbollah also has missiles. It also has precision missiles. It's launched a barrage of precision missiles at Israel just the other day, and there were two impacts in Israel, one in Ramleh and one that hit a satellite station near Beit Shemesh. Those missiles have relatively large warheads. They cause pretty extensive damage. And we're really talking about actual missiles, not very long range. We're talking at a range of 150 or so kilometers compared to Iran's 2,000-kilometer range missiles. But still, those are much, much larger and can cause more damage.
So just to conclude our section on Iran, it appears that at this point, the drones that Iran sends out are not really a threat to Israel. They could be to the region, to our Arab states neighboring us. And it's possible that the missiles are coming usually in batches of 1 or 2 or up to 3, I believe we've seen in the past week or so. And they're becoming basically a terror threat more than any kind of physical threat. Would you agree with that assessment, Manny?
Yeah, first of all, the drones, barely any of them reach Israel. The Israeli Air Force has shot down more than 100 of these drones since the beginning of the war, and the Navy has shot down several dozen as well. But none of them have come close enough to pose any threat to Israel. In contrast, if you look at the Arab states, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and all the others in the Gulf, they've reported sustaining dozens of impacts from drones and hundreds of drones launched at them by Iran during the war. So for them, it's definitely a huge threat. The missiles, like you mentioned, we're seeing salvos of 1 to 3 or so missiles at a time, very small numbers. In the past couple days, Iran has fired at Israel maybe 10 times a day, so we're talking about under 20 missiles per day, whereas on the first day we saw around 90 missiles being fired. So the rate has sort of steadily dropped over the days, and Israel thinks that this will continue to drop, but it will eventually stabilize. It won't go away completely because Iran still has missile launches. It still is estimated to have around 100 or 150 or so missile launches still in its stockpile. So it is still able to launch missiles at Israel. But it is not able to carry out these coordinated barrages of sort of large numbers of missiles at a time, which is what we saw in the previous wars.
We're going to go to a break and then we'll discuss Lebanon and Gaza. And we're back. I'm Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our military correspondent, Emanuel Fabian. Manny, let's turn to what's happening out of Hezbollah. And Hezbollah, as far as I understand it, is still in southern Lebanon, also in the outskirts of Beirut. But we're also hearing reports that it has nested, shall we say, in the border with Syria. What do you know about its location right now?
So in South Lebanon, Israel's sent troops into the area, and it's engaged in fighting against Hezbollah. I wouldn't call it sort of close combat right now. Hezbollah's sort of firing on troops from several kilometers away. But we are hearing reports that it has sent its elite fighters down to South Lebanon to try and engage Israeli troops. And the army's moving through the area. It's reported killing several Hezbollah operatives in the past couple days, conducting strikes on their command centers. The IDF also reported killing one of Hezbollah's regional division commanders in a strike in South Lebanon on Sunday. So that's what's happening in South Lebanon. In Beirut, the Israeli Air Force has been conducting wave after wave of strikes. It is ordered an evacuation of the southern suburbs known as the Dahia, which is sort of a Hezbollah stronghold in South Beirut. We've seen more than 30 sort of multi-story buildings being demolished in these strikes. Israel says that they're used by Hezbollah as weapon depots, as command centers, and other infrastructure. And then in East Lebanon, in the Bekaa Valley, also a Hezbollah stronghold. Israel's been conducting strikes targeting Hezbollah operatives. And like you mentioned, in that area, there's also been reports, and Syria has accused Hezbollah of firing shells into Syria from Lebanon. We're not really sure what's happened exactly there, but there does seem to be some sort of skirmish, or for some reason Hezbollah's firing on Syrian forces in that area in East Lebanon on the Syria Lebanon border. And we've seen also reports that Syria has sent troops to that area to prevent or defend against any possible incursion coming from that side. Unclear exactly what Hezbollah is thinking of it's doing over there, but that's currently the situation as we understand it.
Do you think that it's just another way to create chaos, Manny, to have some kind of skirmishes on the Syrian side of the border? I mean, obviously, Iran has the Iraqi militias as well that it's trying to activate. Is this just another way to destabilize the region, or is it maybe just a misfire? Who knows?
It could be either. Could be maybe Hezbollah was trying to target Israeli forces that they thought were there, and they ended up firing into Syria, or maybe they're trying to destabilize. It's very hard to say, but right now I think the main focus is South Lebanon, where the IDF has pushed in slightly deeper. It's conducting raids, and we're seeing Hezbollah attempt to engage the troops. We've seen them fire anti-tank missiles, and of course launch rockets. Many of these rockets aimed at Israeli forces in South Lebanon, and of course many also at Israeli towns and sites in Israel.
Okay, if you were to compare what's happening right now on the ground in southern Lebanon to what we saw in November 2024, is there any comparison, or are we still at such a low flame in terms of boots on the ground that this is not at all the comparison we should be making?
I think it's sort of comparable. There's a raid being conducted in Rabat Thalathin, which is a Lebanese town just across from Miskaf Am in the Galilee Panhandle area. There, the IDF says that it's sent tanks in, and it's conducting an actual raid, locating Hezbollah infrastructure and operatives and sites, and seizing weapons. That's similar to the ground operation that Israel carried out in 2024 when it launched its ground operation against Hezbollah, but it's only in one area, not in all areas of the border. So in all the other sectors of South Lebanon, troops have pushed forward, but they're just deployed in defensive positions right now, not conducting actual raids. There's only a raid in one area, but I do think that it is expected to expand to other areas as well, and the IDF will conduct more of these types of raids.
So we've already discussed the types of projectiles we're seeing from Lebanon, but do you have any idea of the scope of the numbers that are making their way into Israel?
So from Hezbollah, we've seen hundreds of rockets being launched. Not all of them have crossed the border. Like I said, a lot of their rocket fire is actually just aimed at Israeli troops in South Lebanon, so that doesn't set off sirens in Israel. But of course, troops on the ground get an alert and seek shelter. And we've seen also pretty much all of the injuries from Hezbollah fire have been soldiers thus far. There were, I think, 2 civilians injured by rocket fire in northern Israel. Lightly injured, but the more severe injuries were all troops who were hit by anti-tank fire and rocket fire. So that's the scope which we are now. And also, in addition, Hezbollah's launched drones, dozens of drones at Israel. The vast majority of them have been intercepted, even though it is quite challenging for the IDF to intercept these drones because of the ranges we're talking about. So from Iran, they take many hours to reach Israel, but with Hezbollah, they launch them from a few kilometers away from the border, or even maybe 10 kilometers away from the border, and it's a very short flight. to reach Israel. And therefore, it's a bit more challenging to actually detect them in time and intercept them in time.
And so, in terms of the experience of the residents on the northern border, just to make this clear, as you're saying, most of the fire has been on the IDF. However, the residents of the northern border are just being forced into their shelters again and again as these hundreds of projectiles are raining down in the area, correct?
Yep, the residents of the north have been suffering quite significantly, and they've been having to run to shelter basically all hours of the day. But Israel is saying that it will not be evacuating any residents of the north this time round. There's no intention. They're sending the troops in deeper into South Lebanon to protect them against these attacks, to protect them against mainly direct fire, meaning anti-tank fire, directly at the homes, which was a threat before the war. That's why there's not going to be any evacuation, and for now those residents will have to run to shelter whenever there's rocket fire.
Okay, I know I need to let you go. We've been going on for a long time, but I do want to discuss what's happening in Gaza, and all is not quiet on the Gazan border, or even inside the Strip, obviously. So let's talk about what we're seeing happening right there.
So in the past week of the war, the IDF has reported several incidents in Gaza. We saw a number of cases of Palestinians crossing the yellow line, the Gaza ceasefire line, the IDF identifying them as members of terror groups and killing them in strikes, and also by ground troops conducting operations. There were a number of those cases in different parts of Gaza. The IDF also reported yesterday striking a Hamas rocket launching position. It said that there was a launcher at this site and Hamas was trying to sort of repurpose it, potentially to launch an attack on Israel. There was a couple cases of strikes against Hamas members who the IDF says were planning to carry out sniper attacks against troops in the past week. And alongside all of those activities, the IDF is still demolishing tunnels in Gaza. So it reported this week that it had demolished 5 tunnels, 5 different tunnel routes, which in total is around 2 kilometers worth of tunnels in Gaza during these operations. And in one more case, if I can mention, if you remember the tunnels in Rafah, where dozens of Hamas fighters were believed to have been holed up, the army says that during scans in the area, it discovered the bodies of 2 terrorists who had been killed there sometime previously during these operations to dismantle the tunnels. So that's sort of yet another incident that has been occurring during the war.
Manny, I am going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Times of Israel's Daily Briefing. Now, please stay tuned for our pilot episode of what we're calling 5-Minute Frontlines, in which our video reporter Eli Katzoff is taking us all around the country and speaking with select individuals. So today we're going to hear from Adam, a 5.5-year-old wonder kid who's going to let us know what it's like to be sheltering in Tel Aviv in one of these underground shelters. So stay tuned for 5-Minute Frontlines with Eli Katzoff. In the meantime, I will say goodbye, and I will also say thank you to our producer, Gabriella Jacobs, and to our editor, Ari Schlacht. Until tomorrow, shalom.
Ballistic missiles raining down all over Israel and families seeking shelter multiple times a day, I wanted to understand how children are seeing the situation and what they might think. In one shelter in Tel Aviv, I met Adam, a 5-year-old boy who had a lot to say about it. The following interview was not coached or scripted. These were Adam's own words. I'm Eli Katzoff, the video reporter for the Times of Israel.
Hi, Adam.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for doing this interview really quick.
That's okay.
What's this war been like for you?
It has been like the one in June, but like less scary.
Why was the one in June scary and this one's not as scary?
It's because that in June they shooted like thousands of missiles, but now they only shoot one at a time, which is much easier to shoot down.
Oh, how does that work?
So we have special missiles that launch into space or the sky that shoot down Iran's bad missiles.
What kind of missiles are they shooting at us?
Well, they're shooting at us 2 kinds of missiles.
2 kinds?
One that make very lot of damage, and another one that breaks apart in space into small ones, and then they fall onto different areas, and it's harder to detect and shoot down.
Oh.
So they don't do as much damage.
Oh, those are called
Clusters.
Clusters. Okay. Is there a shelter in your house?
No. Where we go with the Yemen is stairwell.
Wait, did you say with the Yemen?
Yeah,
Oh, you mean the Houthis?
yeah.
Oh, so you go.
Houthis is stairwell.
Okay, so you go to when the Houthis fire rockets, you go to the stairwell.
Yeah.
What about when Iran shoots rockets?
Iran, we go to the building next door.
Okay.
Or Habima.
Or Habima? Oh, the square, so the big public shelter. Wow.
Or that, or the one next door.
What's it like for you to go to these shelters? I mean, you're running. Is it walking? What's it?
We're walking fast, but we're not really running.
Why not running?
Because more people get injured by running than missiles.
Really?
Yeah.
And then when you get to the shelters, are you guys just there? Or were you guys living in a shelter?
We just like stay there till we get the warning that you can go out.
But was there some nights that you were sleeping over?
At the building next door?
Well, I'm thinking like the big Habima one, the big public one.
Yeah, I slept a few times.
What's
Yeah.
it like to sleep in a shelter for you?
For me, I like it. Mama, not so much. She goes back home with Teddy.
Gotcha.
And my
Teddy's
dad,
your younger sibling, right?
brother.
Your younger brother. Okay.
And my dad, he stays with me.
How many nights have you guys been sleeping in shelters?
I think 10, not sure. Like 9 in a row and 1 apart.
Gotcha. So what do you do in a shelter when you're just there for hours on end?
We do what we do. We just do what we want to.
What kind of stuff? Like what are the things
Like
you do?
when I ask them I wanna be with my friends and they allow me. When I ask them I wanna watch, they allow me. That kind of thing.
Have you made friends in the shelter?
Yes, like that girl with the curly hair that you saw.
Oh, I saw the girl with the curly hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was playing with you and hanging out.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's where I met her.
You met her in the shelter.
Yeah, and
Wow.
we became friends.
Oh, that's so cool. And she's like your age, right?
No,
Oh no.
she's a grown-up.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how old anybody is, and I've learned not to assume
She's
people's ages.
25.
She's
years
25.
old.
Adam, just before anything else, can I ask you, how old are you?
5.5.
You're 5.5 years old.
Yes.
What kind of things would you take to a shelter?
I would take seaweed, my favorite snack.
Seaweed.
I would take food, water, pillow, blanket, mattress,
The necessities.
and water.
Yeah, I
of
get
course
that.
water.
Yeah, of course
And
water.
then I would take like stuff that I want, like iPad. I would take eye mask, blanket, cuddle toys. That's what I would also take.
Any last advice you would tell us about what we should do in this situation going on right now? What things we can think about?
Well, you can think about 2 things:
Okay.
being safe
First one being safe.
or being scared. But there's 3 things. There's
Oh,
one more
3.
thing:
Okay, one more thing.
not listening to the rules.
Don't listen to the rules.
Some people actually do that.
They don't listen to the rules.
Yeah.
Wow, what do you think about that?
I think it's not safe because you can like die. It can explode and like you can die. It's very dangerous.
That's very dangerous. Does that stuff scare you?
Not so much
Okay.
because I listen to the rules.